It's the Washington Commanders and the New Orleans Saints this Sunday, and to give you an inside look at the Saints, we've got Bob Rose from the Bayou Blitz Pod and the Saints News Network right here to give an inside look as the Commanders make that playoff push in these final four games. It's your game preview right here on Ref the District. Welcome in Bob Rose from the Bayou Blitz Pod and the All Saints Network, I believe it's called. You're going to fill us in on all of that. We've had you on a couple of times in the years past, and we're still going. You're still going, and we appreciate you coming here on Ref the District.
Guys, I appreciate you having me, and y'all look great. I know we're all getting a little grayer, but been too long since I joined you. And listen, Stoner, there's no reason to pretend like I can't hear you. I know they're bad. I know Washington should murder them this week. But I mean, that's why they play the games. And the Saints, for as bad as they've been, they're not mathematically out of this, and they still have on paper a realistic shot at catching the Bucks and the NFC South.
If you win this game, according to NFL.com anyway, you have a 2% chance to make the playoffs. Now that could be a wild card 2%, but because as you said, your path is probably to the division rather than a wild card. But is there still a lot of talk there in New Orleans about, hey, we've still got a lot left to play for this year?
Not among the media. There's not. I think we're being very realistic. The fan base has taken that realism and taken it to a pessimistic level. Now the players are still going to say, "Hey, we have a lot to play for. We're not out of it until we're out of it." And that kind of approach is admirable. But then you turn on the film of how they played against the Giants. And you guys know how bad the Giants are. And that just looked like two teams playing out the final game of the regular season with nothing to play for. And half of them had their bags already packed at home for vacation. I love a lot of the players on this team. I've gotten to know some of them personally. And they're a bunch of great guys. And still some talent on this team. But I mean, realistically, this hasn't been a playoff team, from the way they played on the field since week 2.
Wow. So, quarterback issues down there. Obviously, Derek Carr went down with the left wrist injury last week, something like that. And then your interim head coach, Rizzi, came out today that Jake Rayner and Spencer Rattler are going to duke it out for starting this week. With your insider information and your notion, your opinion, who do you see winning that competition and starting on Sunday?
Now, keep in mind, it's just my opinion, because the Saints and Rizzi are playing it close to the vest. Hayner and Rattler are both going to get first team reps at least through tomorrow. My gut feeling is Jake Hayner is going to get the call against you guys. Reason being is Rattler already got his 3 starts when Carr was out with the oblique injury. While Spencer has some intriguing physical gifts, to me, anyway, it's very clear that he is not ready to play, and that was evident also by the way the coaching staff reacted when Derek was healthy again, because Spencer went back to being the emergency quarterback, and Hayner was the number 2 guy. That tells me that they feel like Hayner is the more ready to play quarterback. He may not have the natural gifts that Spencer Rattler does, but I mean, like we just got done talking about, this team is still trying to win games. And if you're going to if you come in with that kind of mentality, to me, Jake Hayner is the guy that makes the quicker decisions right now. He can't push the ball downfield like Spencer, but I mean, with the lack of weapons that this team has, you need a guy to get that ball quick out of his hands to make the decision quick, even if it is a bunch of checkdowns. So my gut feeling is Jake Hayner will get the call against Washington on Sunday.
Yeah, I don't think we talked about it earlier before you came on that. Obviously it's relatively speaking, but we're not afraid of Spencer Rattler. We're not afraid of Jake Hayner either, right? But to be honest, we're not really afraid of Derek Carr, even if he was playing, right? That's just kind of the way it is in here. And a reminder to everybody who's here in the chat, if you got any questions for Bob, make sure you put them in here and we'll be sure to ask them. All right, Bob, I got 2 words for you that really hurts a lot of people here in Washington. Those 2 words are Chase Young. Right? Chase Young, not specifically him, but he set that pick, I should say, set this franchise back because we didn't take Justin Herbert. We didn't take Tua. And this was supposed to be our guy, our generational talent. And obviously it didn't turn out that way. He's been in New Orleans all this year. He got the game ball for his play last week. What have you kind of seen and heard about his play? And is it somebody that you think that could possibly, I believe he signed a 1-year deal, possibly come back here or next?
That was the talk when Chase Young first signed was, how are the Saints going to be able to afford him if he has the big season that a lot of us expected? Well, he hasn't had that kind of big season. And, I was just asked about Chase earlier, and, my initial thought was earlier in the year was, I'm hearing a lot of people question his effort all the way back to his Washington days, even coming out of Ohio State. So that was my initial thought. But then you go back and you look at the film of Chase Young, and I've come to the conclusion that he's not a Jadeveon Clowney, a guy that's going to give an effort one play, take off the next, et cetera, et cetera. Chase Young is just simply not a finisher. He has nice athletic gifts. He's a decent natural athlete, has good natural strength, plays with effort. Again, in my opinion, he just doesn't have that elite burst to the ball. When you watch a TJ Watt, when you watch a Micah Parsons, reaching back, talking about Lawrence Taylor, guy you guys are familiar with, Dexter Manley, Reggie White. Those guys, when they got a beat on the ball carry, whether it's a quarterback, a running back, end around, they just had that elite finishing burst. And that is what Chase Young lacks, from watching him a lot closer this year. Because, he's always shown flashes. He showed flashes with you guys. He showed flashes with San Francisco. But then you have to examine that closer. Look at how much defensive line talent you guys had in Washington when Chase was there. Look at how much defensive line talent that San Francisco had when Chase played there the end of last year. Well, New Orleans doesn't have that kind of talent. Brian Bresee is going to be a beast, but is still developing. Cam Jordan is not that same kind of player anymore. And Carl Granderson is more of a complementary piece. To me, that's what Chase Young is, a complementary piece. He's a guy. If Cam Jordan was still Cam Jordan, Cam, I'm sorry, I am giving away my age. I am an old man. If Cam Jordan was still that guy that you can count on for 12, 15 sacks a year, then that's who the offenses are going to pay attention to. Therefore, a guy like Chase Young going to get more single blocking on the other side. He's going to be upwards in about 8-10 sacks if he stays healthy. Unfortunately, the Saints don't have that kind of defensive line, and Chase Young is not that kind of player that offenses game plan for. That's why, in my opinion, that's why you guys hate him so much, because when you're the second overall pick, you do have to be a Lawrence Taylor or a Reggie White or a TJ Watt. Chase Young's only crime is that he's not that guy. And when you're the second overall pick, you better be that guy. Otherwise, you're going to get a lot of criticism. And because of that, I don't think the market for Chase is going to be as big as maybe he expected when he signed this 1-year prove-it deal. So I do think that there's a possibility that the Saints can realistically re-sign him to maybe a 2-year, fairly cap-friendly contract, but don't think that that's going to be the answer to their defensive woes, because as I just said, he is not the guy. He is just a guy.
Hey, Jack.
Hey, Trev, you knew I was going to ask that, right?
Yeah, I did.
You knew I was going to ask the Chase Young question.
Of course. So I saw today it was reported that AK Alvin Kamara was out with an illness today. He did not practice. Is that something to be really take some cautious and be serious about? And then if not, can we expect him to pretty much take the offensive workload on Sunday? Because like you said, you don't have that many offensive weapons. You just lost Taysom Hill. Olave is ready, but he's not ready this week. It was reported. And then I just read off the other receivers of Stoner. We have no idea who they are. So are we looking for AK to carry much of the load on Sunday for offense if he plays?
Well, Alvin Kamara is the offense. As you said, Valdez-Scantling has made some nice plays as a deep receiver, but Derek Carr's not playing, and he's the best deep ball thrower on the team. Juwan Johnson, Foster Moreau, they're decent pieces, but they're not the kind of pass catchers that scare opposing defenses. And Kendre Miller, who I believe is a talented young man, is still unproven. All you got left is Kamara. Am I concerned that he won't play? No, not really, because Wednesday is typically a rest day for him anyway. Rest, recovery. So, oftentimes even when 100% healthy, he's limited at practice at best. If he doesn't practice at all tomorrow, on Thursday, then I would be a little bit concerned. But there have been 2 or 3 times this year where AK has been limited or sat out on Wednesday practice altogether, and it was reported to us that he was just dealing with an illness. I would be now. He's banged up too. Nothing specific, just beaten up and worn down. But I would fully expect him to play on Sunday. How he performs, is a complete other story. Kamara has been pretty productive, pretty consistently productive, despite the absence of Olave, Shaheed, now Taysom. But now you don't have Carr. So, now Washington knows 100% that if Kamara doesn't run the ball successfully, that Saints offense ain't going anywhere. So it'll be very interesting to me how Clint Kubiak utilizes Alvin Kamara, if he tries to use Kendre Miller more between the tackles to hopefully pinch those defenders inside and maybe get Kamara outside the numbers. That's personally what I would do, because however you use Alvin, his success is dependent on the success of the entire unit.
Kind of keeping along those same lines, our guy Gus here, who's had a lot of great questions in the chat here, but I can't keep up with all of them. But as you said, you're kind of looking at him in terms of he's the offense, so get him the ball any way you can throughout this game. But maybe they should take the opposite approach and just kind of put him in a bubble wrap, because all those guys you talked about, Taysom Hill and Shaheed and Olave and Carr, but he's next, and then what do you got?
Well, you got nothing. But like I said, you're still trying to win games because mathematically you're in this thing. If Alvin Kamara doesn't play, you don't win. Because you have you don't have nearly enough firepower to keep pace with Washington. Otherwise, as it is, you probably don't. I understand the philosophy, keeping him in bubble wrap, as the saying goes, because you want to prolong this man's career. You're looking for the future as much as the present. But Alvin is I think 64, 65 yards away from his first 1,000-yard rushing season. That means something to him. And it means something to the team too. You mentioned Olave before about how he's eligible to come off injured reserve. I think they're taking a wait and see approach with him, because concussions, as you guys know, are not something to mess around with. If New Orleans manages to win this game, and if they get a little bit of help, say Tampa Bay and or Atlanta loses, and they're really in the thick of things, then maybe you do see Olave come back out, against Green Bay the following week, or maybe the week after against Vegas, if you're legitimately trying to make a playoff push. If you're not, you don't take any risks with Olave. Conversely, if you lose this game to Washington, Tampa Bay and or Atlanta wins, I'm not sure if you're mathematically eliminated, but you might as well be. At that point, maybe you then examine Alvin a little bit more closely. Hey, what are you dealing with? Can you realistically get through the season without aggravating anything, anything serious? And if you can't, then I do put him on the shelf for the rest of the year. But at the same time, too, Darren Rizzi is coaching potentially for a permanent head coaching job. Now, his likelihood of getting it is probably fairly slim. But if this team makes a run and makes the playoffs, he has a strong case for being having that interim title removed. And again, you ain't going to win games without Alvin Kamara.
That's a good segue to my question, because I was going to ask. Doesn't have anything to do with Sunday, but are there any? I know we have 3 or 4 games left. Are there any early rumblings of a potential new head coach candidates for New Orleans? You guys have anybody you're looking at right now, or is it still too early to decide?
Well, I'll tell you who the fans want is Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator from the Lions.
That's who we wanted last year too.
Exactly, and he's going to be a hot name throughout the league. The secondary names, that the fans and some of us in the media are hearing. We're hearing Aaron Glenn, defensive coordinator for the Lions. Makes a lot of sense. He was with Sean Payton in this organization for years. He has had success, with Dan Campbell, also a former Saints assistant. And then another name the fans want, I'm not so hot on, is Mike Vrabel. Vrabel, the former Titans coach, he's going to land somewhere. There's no question in my mind. I can't think necessarily it's a fit for the scheme New Orleans has, but Vrabel is certainly going to get interviewed. Those are the top three names on the tips of everybody's lips and tongues right now. But the Saints are definitely going to interview other candidates too.
Yeah, and we, of course, did a deeper study or a deeper research on Ben Johnson. First of all, his personality stinks, but you're not hiring him for his personality, right? You're hiring him for his ability to X and O your way to 32 points a game or whatever Detroit's doing.
Well, I mean, let me interrupt you. Again, in your opinion, when you say his personality stinks, in what way? I mean, is it arrogance? Is it ego? Does he just have a bland Bill Belichick personality?
Yeah, he's a bland. I mean, without trying to be too down on him or discredit him too much. I mean, he's a nerd. He's not a guy. For example, here in Washington, we have Dan Quinn. Dan Quinn is a guy. He's like a Dan Campbell, right? He's an energy guy. He is a guy. He's an in your face. He's a all positive all the time. And from everything that we studied with Ben Johnson, is he just wants to sit in a little corner of the room and draw up plays. He's not interested so much in being a leader of men. I'm not saying he can't do it. I'm just saying that right now, that's kind of his personality that we've all seen, that he's not that kind of guy. But again, it doesn't matter if you can draw the X's and O's and turn this offense, back into the old Sean Payton days, right?
Well, I mean, but maybe it does matter because Dennis Allen, very much a nerd, very much an X's and O's guy, could scheme defenses with the best of them. Not a leader of men. Didn't hold his players accountable, didn't hold his coaches accountable, didn't hold himself accountable. And that's why things unraveled very quickly here in New Orleans. So if Ben Johnson is another kind of guy like that, I think that that's something that Mickey Loomis, Gail Benson, and the powers that be in New Orleans need to take a good hard look at. Having said that, you guys know as well as I do that the Ben is going to get interviewed by everybody with a head coaching vacancy.
Yeah, and then let me ask you about Lattimore. Of course, he's coming back to New Orleans where he played this season. It's not like it's been a couple of years or anything. And it's his first game for Washington. Most likely he's going to play. He was a full participant in practice today. What should we expect on the field with Marshon Lattimore?
I'll tell you, Marshon Lattimore is a top 3 cornerback in my opinion. And I personally, I can make a strong case for number 1. And he's also hands down, the best cornerback the Saints have had in their franchise history, and it is not even close. Marshon has dealt with a lot of injuries in the last 3 years, which has caused the fan base to get a little bit sour on him. But some of those were serious injuries. But I'll tell you what. If Marshon is healthy and he's locked in, if you're playing a team with an elite wide receiver, and everybody knows the success that Laddie has had against Mike Evans, but even beyond that, you're talking St. Brown, Amon-Ra St. Brown from Detroit. Debo from San Francisco. If you guys are playing someone with an elite wide receiver, Marshon Lattimore wants that assignment and wants it one-on-one. Give me as many one-on-one opportunities as you can give me against this guy. And my job is to take him out of the game altogether. And more often than not, he accomplishes just that. To me, if he's healthy and locked in, he is still that player. He is the kind of player that elevates an entire defense.
So what's the reason for him being traded away? Was it money? Was it the injury history, or was it just time?
A combination of a couple things. I say off the record, we're sitting here in a public interview. Marshon kind of wanted out of New Orleans. To him, it was time. I believe that there was some kind of rift between he and Dennis Allen, and that kind of trickled upstairs. And a lot of people, myself included, and I have to admit it because I've said it publicly, have questioned Marshon's willingness to play with some of those injuries. Now, again, I acknowledge some of them were pretty serious injuries too. So I think that when you factor all those things in, plus the immense salary cap escalation that his contract was going to cost New Orleans next year, the Saints saw an opportunity to get some draft picks, and just decided to move on from him. And listen, New Orleans drafted Kool-Aid McKinstry in the second round, out of Alabama, and a lot of people felt at the time, and myself included, that as soon as they drafted Kool-Aid, which made me raise an eyebrow. I love McKinstry as a talent, but there were other needs, more pressing, immediate needs to address. As soon as they selected McKinstry, I said on our podcast during our draft coverage, I said, this means that in 2020, I didn't expect Lattimore to get traded this year. That surprised me a little. But I said publicly, this means in 2025 that either Paulson Adebo, who's in a contract year, or Marshon Lattimore will not be a Saint in 2025. This pick of Kool-Aid McKinstry was for the future more so than it was the present. So, again, all those things that I just mentioned about Lattimore, now you have McKinstry, and you have a chance to kind of press that young man into even more playing time right away, to see what he can do down the stretch. I think all those things together created the trade, the trade possibility, and eventuality of Marshon Lattimore.
All right, my last question for you, Bob. We got to get your game prediction for this Sunday. Again, 1:00 down in New Orleans, Fox Television. Who do you got, and what's the score?
Man, I don't. We talked a lot about the New Orleans offense. We did not talk about the pathetic Saints defense. They can't stop anybody. I'm watching.
Why are they so good with their points per game, though? Then they're like
they stiffen up in the red zone. Mainly because, and here's why: this team is not fast anymore. There are a lot of their players that are extremely vulnerable in space, and obviously when you get now down near the red zone, that condenses everything. The Saints have played, to their credit, they have played better, but I mean they can't stop the run. They're suddenly very vulnerable against the pass because they're beaten up and depleted in the secondary, and they don't have a consistent pass rush. And my God, the lack of discipline and the poor tackling on this team is just atrocious. I'm watching Drew Lock, pick up 17, third and 17 first downs with his legs. And I'm thinking to myself, my God, Jaden Daniels is going to run for 250 yards on this defense and throw for another 250. I know that's a little bit out of the box, but Jaden Daniels is going to victimize this defense. I don't see how New Orleans is going to be able to stop not only him but Robinson. I don't necessarily see McLaurin having a big day, but Robinson and Daniels are going to eat these guys alive. Contrastly, I don't see Jake Haener or Spencer Rattler being able to put up enough points to keep pace. I see, and frankly, I'm being conservative. I see Washington coming out of this with a 27-13 win.
I like that.
All right.
I don't, but I'm accepted at this point.
Yeah,
we'll take it.
I think for me, I'll give my score right now too. All those things are extremely valid. It's a week-to-week league though, and so you never know. But I mean, look, Washington is obviously in a playoff push here, right? 4 games left, sitting in the very last seed, and obviously they want to get to the playoffs. They've got the talent, a lot of the talent that they need to make that playoff push. And you're going into New Orleans playing a not very good team with a backup quarterback, a backup head coach, all of that. So I'm going to go with Washington winning this game, probably in that same area that you have it, but I've got Washington a little higher, 31-16.
Very nice. I guess it's my turn. I'm going to be a little lower than that. My guess is 24-9 Washington, and the reason why is because I'm not really fully trusting this team after a bye. We had a little mini bye after, like, during the Thanksgiving holiday, and we came out and lost to the Cowboys, which had, similar track record to you guys. Awful, no talent offense. We're supposed to win that game, and we end up losing the game by a couple touchdowns. So I'm not really trusting the way we perform after a bye. But so I think we'll still be a little rusty. So 24-9. I don't see Jake Haener putting up any touchdowns at all. I'm sorry, but
3 field goals.
Yeah,
we don't even know who the kicker is in New Orleans.
Blake Groupie, who is actually better from beyond 50 yards than he is from inside of 30 yards. So there's that too.
Okay.
Short ones.
So what the three of us are saying is we're not going to be picking up Jake Haener or Spencer Rattler on our fantasy teams this week.
Oh no!
In fact, no. I might pick up like Derek Carr just to.
I have a bye this week. I'm in first place in one of my leagues.
Oh, so listen to Trev flex.
I'm good.
All right. Well, Bob, thanks for joining us here on
man.
Tell us a little bit about where Washington fans can find your work. We talked about the Bayou Blitz pod, and I don't even know if I'm saying that right. Bayou Blitz or Bayou Blitz?
Bayou Blitz.
That's Bayou Blitz. Yeah, but tell us a little bit about where we can find your work, your writing, all that good stuff.
Well, guys, first of all, thank you for having me back. I love your show. Love joining you. We're going to have to do this a couple times in the off season, have both of y'all on our shows too. And our show is called the Bayou Blitz. We typically run on Wednesday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern time. This week, we're going to run tomorrow night. We had to shift to Thursday night, but we're going to run at 9 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow evening. You can catch all of our past shows. We've had some great guests lately, a couple of Saints Hall of Famers, that were really fun to sit down and talk to. So you can catch any of our past shows, on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to your favorite, radio shows or podcasts. You can also follow my written work, through the Saints News Network or the SI.com team page for the New Orleans Saints. And I also post all of my articles and show links on my personal social media, which is Bob Rose on Facebook and at Bobby R2613 on Twitter.
Awesome. Thanks, Bob. We appreciate all the insight for New Orleans. Good luck to your team, but hopefully they get their tails kicked here this Sunday.
Yeah.
Guys, it's my pleasure again. And frankly, to be honest with you, I'm hoping all three of us are wrong on our predictions. But good luck to you guys, too. You're a really fun team to watch. And I'll be rooting for you into the playoffs, too.
All right. Appreciate it, Bob.
Thanks,
Take
Bob.
care.
Take care.